Shalom to the elect of Israel, to the hopeful elect of Israel, you Hebrew Israelites, you so-called Negroes, Latinos, Native Americans, West Indian, and Haitians, that give all praise, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shah, Bahashem, Rekah Kodash. Double honors to the apostles and elders of Great Millstone who rule well, who teach well, and a sincere salutation to all the occupants pushing this truth and believing this truth throughout the four winds of the earth, the entire world, waking up the hope for the elect. And shalom to the Akwafu who are listening and learning, the few sisters who are listening and learning. I'm Isaiah from the GMS Orlando camp, coming at you with another lesson in true fact, faith, and edification. Another daily edification, Lord's willing, this be edifying. And this is Defunding of the revised Roman Empire, back to the dust and confusion which from which you came. Lord's willing, this be edifying.
Okay, from the national headquarters of RG America here at our nation's capital. Hello again, everybody. I'm Rick Sanchez. Tonight we examine whether certain U.S. television networks are actually trying to cancel out certain presidential candidates in lieu of others. And we're going to tell you who is being affected by this and why. But we're going to begin tonight with the CEO of Huawei speaking his mind on what the Trump administration is doing to his company and why. So Huawei CEO Ren Zhengfei is now actually quoted as saying that trade between the U.S. and China has nothing to do with Huawei. His words. See, the point Huawei is trying to make, whether it's the CEO who's speaking or other company officials, is that the real reason that the United States is going after Huawei has less to do with security and more to do with trying to sabotage the competition. In other words, if you can't beat them, then just accuse them of being spies. Now, does Huawei's CEO have a point here? I want you to listen to this very interesting, this is an off-the-cuff interview where President Trump, as he often does, called into a television network. This is CNBC, a U.S. business network. And he seemed to let down his guard somewhat to reveal what may be the real reason that we, the United States, are actually sanctioning Huawei. Here it is.
Huawei is very powerful, very strong. I don't want to put their companies out of business. I want China to do well. I don't want them to do as well as us.
There's something crazy honest about that, right? I just want them to not do as well as us, right? So even if the U.S. suspects China of stealing our technology, why go after Huawei, right? There's China and there's Huawei. At least that's the way Huawei presents it. Huawei and those who follow the tech industry say this is why. Let me take you through the numbers because they're kind of impressive. So Huawei has grown to become one of the world's top telecommunications providers. It does 109 billion in annual sales. It has tripled revenues in just 5 years. It employs 180,000 people in 170 countries. It ranks as the world's second largest cell phone company in the world, behind only Samsung. That is why even U.S. economists, including that guy you see right there, that's Ivy League scholar from Yale, Stephen Roach. He says that the Trump administration's accusations that Huawei is a threat to national security is, quote, based on innuendo and assumptions, not facts. That's an economist from Yale, not China, the United States. But what is Huawei saying tonight? And more importantly, what is it doing? We've got that for you. This is the news with Rick Sanchez, where we believe it's time to do news again. Here's the list of the questions that we think you're going to be asking tomorrow. How angry is Huawei? And what are they going to be doing about it? Is the EU using small print to try and stop the Nord Stream pipeline? Which two presidential candidates are getting biased coverage? We begin tonight with the man you see behind me. There he is. His name is Ren Zhenfei. He has gone from relative obscurity, right? I mean, who the hell had ever heard of this guy? To, in the last 8 months or so, the leader of a company that has become a household name. But it was singled out by the Trump administration. Since then, the reaction from Huawei, both from the boardroom to the factories, has become almost, how should I describe this? Personal. It's become almost personal, like a mission for these guys. It's a development that really should surprise nobody, especially given the fact that this all began when the Trump administration had that guy's daughter, Mr. Zhenfei's daughter, arrested. Kind of makes you ask, right? How would you act if somebody arrested your daughter? All right, joining us now is News with Rick Sanchez special correspondent Michelle Greenstein, who's been working on this story throughout the day. So Mr. Zhenfei has been talking. What's up? What are we learning?
So the main thread that we're learning is that this U.S. war on Huawei has actually helped Huawei. That's his position. By giving them difficulties, the U.S. has actually increased Huawei's need for self-reliance. So his position is, look, we're going to continue to buy from the U.S. if we can, right. But if we can't, and we believe that we should be able to because we think that collaboration is the road to success, but if we can't, we don't need the United States. So here's what else he has to say about shared success. Let's take a listen to this. He says, I don't think we were fully prepared for being added to the entity list, so we faced some pressure. However, we found we are fully capable of shaking off our reliance on the U.S. for our core products. So he's saying, look, we don't want to do this, but if we have to, we will be fine. And there are also some other products that can't do without U.S. components, and he says that Huawei is cutting those products because of the pressure that they're facing because of that. But he also emphasizes that he has 80,000 people on his technical staff that are working to fix these problems, and in time, they will no longer be problems.
It almost sounds, once again, we had this conversation last week, like the United States in its efforts has somehow accelerated what they were doing. But do they cop or do they admit that they may be a security threat to the United States and that maybe the U.S. Officials who accuse them of that are onto something?
That's right. I mean, we've heard a lot from the U.S. that Huawei is a national security threat, that it's being used as an agent of the Chinese state to spy on behest of China, at the behest of China. Right. But let's take a listen to what he has to say about these national security concerns. He says, I don't know what the national security concern is to the U.S. We don't have any networks in the U.S., nor do we intend to sell our 5G products there anyway. So there's no way we can pose a threat to the U.S. And he also says that, hey, the U.S. is the most technologically advanced and most capable nation in the world, and that it should, in theory, have better ways to address such security issues.
But it's not just security issues, it's also the IP issues, right? I mean, intellectual property. The United States says that not just Huawei, but other Chinese companies are essentially stealing our secrets. What does he answer that?
Of course.
All the rape, robbery, murder, pillaging, and plundering that Babylon the Great have done around the world, now they got a problem with what's going on with Huawei. All the rape, robbing, and murdering, pillaging, and plundering you have done, thieves, murderers, now they got a problem.
I mean, there is the accusation that the reason Huawei is ahead is because it stole from U.S. companies, right? So let's take a listen to what he had to say about that. He said, none of our litigation has found that Huawei has maliciously stolen anyone else's IP. And in fact, I want to expand on this. So the two lawsuits that are at hand are one from Cisco and one from Motorola. Cisco sued Huawei in 2003 for copying their software code, but that lawsuit was actually dropped, and there was a code comparison done between Huawei and Cisco, and about 1% of the code matched. So that's become a non-issue, legally speaking. We also have the Motorola lawsuit, which was, they were sued for trade secret theft. But the CEO actually says that the reason that lawsuit was brought is because Motorola wanted to blame someone else for their own collapse. And in fact, the U.S. government actually paid Huawei money. They paid for their litigation costs and admitted that this issue was non-existent. Yeah, so that's his position on the IP theft allegations.
I read the numbers, and they're a very impressive company. How do they maintain their apparent dominance given all the pressure that the Trump administration is putting on them?
So they've been dominant since before this pressure, but it's a really simple answer actually. They're ahead because they're investing more in the actual creation of their technology. They're investing in research and development. In just 1 year, they spent about $13 billion in research and development, and the main US competitor in that same year spent about half of that. Spent about $5.5 billion. That's Qualcomm in the US. So there's a lot of evidence that Huawei's ahead, which is why it makes sense that we're kind of waging this war on a company that will have a huge access to our telecom infrastructure. And not only, I mean, you mentioned that they're the second biggest phone maker on earth, along with Samsung and Apple, but they're the largest telecommunications producer as a whole on earth right now. And they're also a top patent holder for both 5G and 4G technologies.
How does he feel? How does Huawei feel? They used to have a dependence almost. I think that's not an unfair word for me to use. That's my word, not his. On companies like Qualcomm and Intel, for example. The United States' sanctions are kind of creating a distance between those companies. Is he still willing to work with those companies? Or is he saying, look, I don't need you guys, I'm going to go it alone?
You know, it's funny that you asked, because in that same interview that you quoted from the beginning, he said, I counted at least 3 times, he said something along the lines of this: if we can work with U.S. companies, we will. To the point where they actually work with U.S. companies when they don't have to. When they can create some of these components like the chipsets themselves, they still buy from Qualcomm. So he says, we will continue to buy from the U.S. if we can, and we believe we should, but if we can't, then we will slowly, wean ourselves off of this dependence.
He is going to continue to tell his story to everyone who will listen. What do we know about this guy, by the way? I think he's a fascinating guy, if for no other reason that I became interested to him when they arrested his daughter. I'm a dad, I have a daughter, and I started seeing myself in his shoes. I wonder if other people around the world are suddenly buying his phones because they kind of relate to his situation.
I mean, I don't know a lot about what we know about this guy personally, but the fact is we're going to want to be continuing to listen to his story, because he is the CEO of a company that has 29% of the global telecom market right now, and they're poised to control about half of the next generation of wireless infrastructure, which will be 5G.
That's a great report. Good reporting. Good stuff.
Ecclesiastes 10:8. Because of unrighteous dealings. Because of unrighteous dealings. Injuries and riches got by deceit. The kingdom is translated from one people to another. And you see Babylon the Great declining rapidly every day, man. And why? It's because of your unrighteous dealings. And prophecy must be fulfilled that Babylon the Great will fall. I'm going to play this and I'm going to get the precepts.
All right. Hello again, everybody. I'm Rick Sanchez, and we want to welcome those of you who've been watching us from all over the world, whether you're watching us on regular TV or on the portable TV app. We're going to begin with a story that could send literal shockwaves through the global economy. According to the Chinese news agency, China is going to begin recalling or selling off the U.S. debt that it controls. Now, this, by the way, would be a very poignant message that it's sending about the U.S. economy, both from a pragmatic standpoint and from a psychological standpoint as well. The message that it would be sending to the rest of the world. China owns more of our debt in the United States than just about any country in the world. So why would they be doing this, right? Well, think about it. So just today, as we reported here, as breaking news about an hour ago, the U.S. Federal Reserve came within moments of being pressured into lowering interest rates below zero. In the end, they pulled back from taking them into negative territory. But even that buildup of what they might do was significant enough. So China is worried that when you combine what the Fed has already done in buying back bonds and pouring billions into banks, in printing $2 trillion to pump into a sputtering economy in the United States, what you have is the makings of a weaker dollar. In other words, as experts describe it, the U.S. currency will be devalued. And what China is essentially saying is, we see a storm coming, and we're going to...
See? They see a storm coming. Hey, and all the nations saying the same thing. It's Habakkuk 2:6. Should not all these take up a parable against him? Yeah. China just said they see a storm coming. Shall not all these take up a parable against him, and a taunting proverb against him, and say, woe to him that increaseth that which is not his? How long? And to him that laden himself with thick clay. That thick clay meaning debt, man. Okay? And that's what they're saying, man. They're taking up the taunting proverb against him, man.
Going to start getting out of the way, while the getting out of the way is good. So, what does this really mean for the global economy, right? Who wins? Who loses? And how is this going to affect you and me and the rest of us? We're going to tackle these questions here on the News with Rick Sanchez, where we believe it is time, yes it is, to do news again.
Galatians chapter 6, verse 7 reads, be not deceived, Yahweh, Bahashim Yahweh Shai is not marked. For whatsoever a man soweth, that shall he also reap. For he that soweth to his flesh shall of the flesh reap corruption. But he that soweth to the Spirit shall of the Spirit reap life everlasting. So what we see is going on is what they have done is turned upon their own head, man. Okay, the Lord is turning back what they have done, man. You gotta reap, you gotta sow, you gotta reap what you have sown, man. As the Lord say, he will turn that upon his own head.
All right, here's the list of the questions we think you'll be asking. What will happen if China sells off the U.S. debt? Can a protest go too far? And should you be fired for how you protest? And what is the history of barricades and law enforcement around the White House? But we're going to begin with what is a blockbuster of a story. China is finally going through with it. They're beginning to sell off more than $1 trillion it owns of the U.S. debt, our debt. So why are they doing this? And what does it really mean? We're going to drill down on all of this, but we're going to begin with a RT Boom Bust host, Ben Swan, and this explainer.
This is Psalms chapter 7, verse 16. His mischief shall return upon his own head, and his violent dealing shall come down upon his own pate. That word pate, P-A-T-E, mean his crown, his head, man.
The U.S. Federal Reserve's endless printing of U.S. dollars is resulting in a new consequence from one of the largest holders of American debt. We're talking, of course, about China. According to new reports, China, which is the second largest foreign creditor, has decided to not wait for the devaluation of the U.S. dollar and is actively selling American debt. Keep in mind, during the first quarter of 2020, the Fed printed more than $2 trillion, with more on the way. Last year, China got rid of $110 billion in U.S. treasuries, and within just the past few weeks, they have dropped another $10 billion. Aside from the massive printing of U.S. dollars, another major issue for the Chinese has been talk of the Fed moving to negative interest rates. Now, as of Wednesday afternoon, the Fed announced it will not pursue that policy of negative interest rates at this time. But the discussion of negative interest rates has been going on for several months now. According to Standard Chartered economists, the federal fund rate at minus 0.5 or even minus 1% will result in a significant drop in government bond yields, which would facilitate Washington's debt servicing. The concern from the Chinese is that those negative interest rates will not benefit the value of the dollar, and that U.S. currency, as a result, will inevitably become cheaper. Now keep in mind, American debt is a widely held and extremely desirable asset in the global economy. Whatever debt China does sell is simply purchased by other countries. For instance, back in August of 2015, China reduced its holdings of U.S. treasuries by about $180 billion. Despite the scale, this sell-off did not significantly affect the U.S. economy. But the difference between 2015 and 2020, well, there are three major differences.
All that
Number one,
worthless
we're talking
paper
about the incredible
you see
amount of
right now.
liquidity the Fed has poured into the market.
All that
just
worthless
this year
paper.
alone. Number two, an attempt by the Fed to go to negative interest rates. And then number three, the issue of a global pandemic that has devastated economies around the world.
Now let me read this, because you got to understand who the world is dealing with, man. This is Genesis 3 and 14. And the Lord Yahweh power said unto the serpent, because thou hast done this, thou art cursed above all cattle. We are all known as cattle. We are all cattle, and above every beast of the field. Upon thy belly shall thou go, meaning they're going to be the lowest of the low. They're going to be the basest of men. And dust shall thou eat all the days of thy life. You got to understand what's going on right here when the Lord told the serpent, again, thou art cursed above all cattle and above every beast of the field. The Lord created 18 nations on the earth, 18 nations. Upon thy belly shall thou go, meaning the bases of men, the lowest, and dust shall thou eat all the days of thy life, meaning confusion. Everywhere they go, they bring confusion. Okay, this is the serpent seed now. He said, they shall be the bases of men. On their belly shall thou go, meaning the bases of men, and dust shall they eat all the days of thy life. This is Isaiah 24 and verse 5. The earth also is defiled under the inhabitants thereof, because they have transgressed the laws, changed the ordinance, broken the everlasting covenant. Therefore have the curse devoured the earth. Who's the curse? I just read in Genesis 3 and 14. The Lord told him that he is cursed above all cattle, and they that dwell therein are desolate. Therefore the inhabitants of the earth are burned, and few men left. This is verse 10. The city of confusion is broken down. What's the city of confusion? Babylon the Great, man. Every house is shut up that no man may come in. Then the Lord say they shall bring confusion. All the days of their life they shall eat dust, meaning confusion. There was a crying for wine in the streets. All joy is darkened. The mirth of the land is gone. And the city is left desolation, and the gate is smitten with destruction.
For the news with Rick Sanchez, I'm Ben Swan. Ben's good enough to join us live to take us through this. He's going to be joined by George Galloway. So what we're doing with both of these guests is we're offering you the business perspective and the political implications of this story. Ben, I want to begin with you. Look, I just called around some of my sources, and when I asked them why China was doing this, what they told me is that China is tired of seeing the dollar as the world's only currency, and that this is just the beginning of them, China that is, creating or competing and making their own currency at some point in the future. Can you confirm that and explain that to us?
See, we dealing with the basis of men here. It's Ecclesiastes 33 and 10. And all men are from the ground, and Adam was created of earth. In much knowledge, the Lord have divided them and made their ways diverse. Some of them have he blessed and exalted, and some of them have he sanctified and set near himself. But some of them have he cursed, like I read in Genesis 3 and 14. But some of them have he cursed and brought low and turned out of their places, meaning confusion, as the clay is in the potter's hand to fashion it at his pleasure, Yahweh's pleasure, so man is in the hand of him that made him, to render to them as liking him best. Good is set against evil, and life against death. So is the godly set against the sinner, and the sinner against the godly. So look upon all the works of the Most High, and there are two and two, one against another. When you go to Isaiah 29 and 16, it reads this: surely your turning of things upside down shall be esteemed as the potter's clay. Who turned things upside down? The wicked. They changed the ordinance, broken the everlasting covenant. For shall the work say of him that made him, he made me not? Or shall the thing framed say of him that framed it, he have none understanding? The Lord created them to be the wicked. These are the cursed. These are the ones that's cursed, and they bring nothing but confusion. That's why the world is in an uproar right now, man. This is Luke chapter 1 and verse 52. It reads, He hath put down the mighty from their seats and exalted them of low degree. And that's what's coming into play, man. The kingdom of the Hebrew Israelites, man. This is Daniel 4 and 17. It reads, This matters by the decree of the watchers and a demand by the word of the holy ones, to the intent that the living may know that the Most High ruleth in the kingdom of men, and giveth it to whomsoever he will, and set up over it the bases of men. These are the Job 9 and 24s. Now, if you understand what happened with these devils, let's read this. Luke 21 and 20. And it reads, And when you shall see Jerusalem compassed with armies, then know that the desolation thereof is nigh. Then let them which are in Judea flee to the mountains, and let them which are in the midst of it depart out, and let not them that are in the countries enter thereinto. For these be the days of vengeance, that all things which are written may be fulfilled. What is Yahweh talking about right here? This is Psalms 137. And I always bring this up. Psalm 137:7. It reads, Remember, O Yahweh, the children of Edom, in the day of Jerusalem, who said, raise it, even to the foundation thereof. What happened right here? When the Babylonians took down Jerusalem, Edom was on the side saying, what? Raise it, even to the foundation thereof. Now, the Babylonians took us down about 586 BC. Okay, 586 BC. Then you had the Romans took us down in 70 AD, starting in 65 AD. So, when you understand history, the Edomites watched the Babylonians take down Jerusalem. What did they do? They came some years later, okay, from 586, and we was in Babylon like what, 70 years or so. So from Babylon, which is 586 BC, all the way to 65 to 70 AD, when the Romans took us down, the Babylonians did it first, man. So Esau, Edom saw they used the techniques of the Babylonians, which is prophecy. That's why Yahweh said it in Luke 21. When you shall see Jerusalem compassed with armies. The Babylonians did it. Then the Idumeans did it in 70 AD. So right here, that's why I say in Psalm 137:7, Remember, O Yahweh, the children of Edom, in the day of Jerusalem, who said, raise it, even to the foundation thereof. Because they was there rooting on the Babylonians when they took us down. That's why the Lord said here in Obadiah, chapter 1, verse 10, it reads, For thy violence against thy brother Jacob, shame shall cover thee. Obadiah 1 and 10. For the violence against thy brother Jacob, shame shall cover thee, and thou shalt be cut off forever. In the day that thou stoodest on the other side, in the day that the strangers carried away captives, his forces, and foreigners entered into his gates, and cast lots upon Jerusalem, even thou was as one of them. You see? So, when you go back to Psalms, chapter 50, in verse 18, it reads this. When thou sawest a thief, then thou consentest with him, and hast been partakers with adulterers. You see, verse 20 say, Thy sittest and speakest against thy brother, thy slanderest thy own mother tongue. So, what's happening right now with all this going on? Their mischief is falling upon their own head, man. Because of the violence that you did, because of that Ecclesiastes 10 and 8, because of your unrighteous dealings, man. Let's finish playing this.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely true. The one thing I would push back on is the fact that they said this is the beginning. I think you can go back 5 years, 6 years, and say the beginning really began when China, Russia, India, and South Africa began working together as BRICS, and Brazil began working together as the BRICS nations. That was the real first move, I think, to say we're going to get rid of the US dollar as the world's reserve currency. China doesn't like it, and other nations don't either, because it puts them in a politically disadvantageous position and economically disadvantageous position. And so what we're seeing right now is the continuation of that effort, and certainly China is not going to hold US debt forever. They're going to sell it off when they can. As we mentioned in the piece, in the past they've done this, but never to the extent that they're pushing for it now, and certainly not at a time when the U.S. is doing so much to devalue its own currency.
You know, we are not a business show. We are a news program, The News with Rick Sanchez, which is why we see this particular story as one with vast geopolitical implications. Can you take us through that, George Galloway?
This is Isaiah chapter 5, verse 20. Woe unto him that call evil good, and good evil, that put darkness for light, and light for darkness, that put bitter for sweet, and sweet for bitter. See, what's going on is your mischief is falling upon your own head. All the rape, robbing, murder, pillaging, and plundering you have done around the earth, all the peace breaking you have done, the nations are angry, man. They are pissed off, and the Lord is returning your own wickedness upon your own head, man. That's what's going on. Galatians 6 and 7. Now, this is Colossians 3 and 25. It reads, but he that doeth wrong shall receive for the wrong which he hath done, and there is no respect of persons. This is James chapter 2, verse 13. It reads, for he shall have judgment without mercy, that have showed no mercy, and mercy rejoiceth against judgment. When you go to what is that, Isaiah 33, it said, what? You spoiled nations, and thou was not spoiled, man. Isaiah 33 and 1. Woe to thee that spoilest, and thou was not spoiled, and dealest treacherously, and they dealt not treacherously with thee. When thou shalt cease to spoil, thou shalt be spoiled. And when thou shalt make an end to deal treacherously, they shall deal treacherously with thee. So this is going on now, man. And you don't know what to do, because your nations that was joined to you through the EU and through that beast system, they're separating. Obadiah 1 and 7. All the men of thy confederacy have brought thee even to the border. The men that were at peace with thee have deceived thee and prevailed against thee. They that eat thy bread, that separate from your dollar, they that eat thy bread have laid a wound under thee. There is none understanding in them. So you see what's going on is it's a separation. And if you understand what happened with the Israelites, if you understand what happened with the Lord taking the Israelites out of power, then you understand what's going on, man. This is called one nation going down and another nation coming up. This is Isaiah 47 and 1. It reads, come down and sit in the dust. Did I not read this in Genesis 3 and 14? Come down and sit in the dust, O virgin daughter of Babylon. Sit on the ground. There is no throne, O daughter of the Chaldeans. For thou shalt no more be called tender and delicate. This same thing happened to the Israelites, man. This is Lamentation chapter 2. I'm going to start at verse 2. It reads, the Lord hath swallowed up all the habitation of Jacob, and hath not pitied. He hath thrown down in his wrath the strongholds of the daughters of Judah. He hath brought them down to the ground. It said the same thing in Isaiah 47 1. He hath polluted the kingdom and the princes thereof. He hath cut off in his fierce anger all the horn of Israel. He hath drawn back his right hand from before the enemy, and he burnt against Jacob like a flaming fire which devoured round about. He had bent his bow like an enemy. He stood with his right hand as an adversary, and slew all that were pleasant to the eye. In the tabernacle of the daughter of Zion, he poured out his fury like fire. The Lord was an enemy. He has swallowed up Israel. Tell you that in Hosea 8 and 8. He has swallowed up all her palaces. He have destroyed his strongholds, and have increased in the daughter of Judah mourning and lamentation. And he have violently taken away his tabernacle as if it were of a garden. He have destroyed his places of the assembly. The Lord Yahweh have called the solemn feasts and the Sabbaths to be forgotten in Zion, and have despised in the indignation of his anger the king and the priest. The Lord Yahweh have cast off his altar. He have abhorred his sanctuary. He have given up into the hand of the enemy the walls of her palaces. They have made a noise in the house of the Lord as in the day of solemn feast. The Lord Yahweh have proposed to destroy the wall of the daughter of Zion. He have stretched out a line. He have not withdrawn his hand from destroying. Therefore he made the rampart and all the wall to lament. They languished together. Her gates are sunk into the ground. That's why I tell you in Jeremiah 14 and 2, Judah mourneth, the gates thereof languish. They are black unto the ground. The gates are talking about the priest, man. Her gates are sunk into the ground. He have destroyed and broken her bars. Her king and her princes are among the Gentiles. The law is no more. Her prophets also find no vision from the Lord. All this happened to Israel. The elders of the daughters of Zion sit upon the ground and keep silent. So what's going on now? The Lord is reversing these things right side up, man. The elders of the daughters of Zion sit upon the ground and keep silent. That's that Jeremiah 14 and 2. They have cast up dust upon their heads. They have girded themselves with sackcloth. The virgins of Jerusalem hang down their heads to the ground. My eye do fail with tears. My bowels are troubled. My liver is poured upon the earth for the destruction of the daughter of my people, because the children and the suckling swoon, because the children and the suckling swoon in the streets of the city. They say to their mothers, where is the corn and wine? When they swoon as the wounded in the streets of the city, when their soul was poured out into their mother's bosom. Listen, man. All these things happened to Jerusalem, man. This is verse Lamentation 2 and verse 16. All thy enemies have opened their mouth against thee. They hiss and gnash the teeth. They say, we have swallowed her up. Certainly this is the day that we look for. We have found, we have seen it. The Lord have done that which he devised. He have fulfilled his word that he have commanded in the days of old. He have thrown down and have not pitied, and he have caused thine enemy to rejoice over thee. He have set up the horn of thine adversaries. Okay? Their heart cry unto the Lord, O wall of the daughter of Zion, let tears run down like a river day and night. Give thyself no rest. Let not the apple of thy eyes cease. It say, and he have caused thy enemy to rejoice over thee. He have set up the horn of thine adversaries. So now what's going on is things are going right side up, man. What did the Lord say in Isaiah 25 and 7? And he will destroy in this mountain the face of the covering cast over all people, and the veil that is spread over all nations. He will swallow up death in victory. And the Lord Yahweh, Bahashim Yahweh will wipe away tears from off all faces, and the rebuke of his people shall he take away from off all the earth. For the Lord Yahweh, Bahashim Yahweh have spoken it. So what's going on is the nations is going back right side up in the favor of the Hebrew Israelites. It's Lamentation 5 and 14. The elders have ceased from the gate, the young men from their music. So you see, when you go to Jeremiah, real quick, Jeremiah 14 and 2, it reads this. Judah mourneth, and the gates thereof languish. They are black unto the ground, and the cry of Jerusalem is gone up. It say Judah mourneth, and the gates thereof languish. That was talking about the elders, man. Precept right here, Lamentation 5 and 14. The elders have ceased from the gate, the young men from their music. You see, when the Lord moved us out of power, and he raised up our adversaries in the midst of us, man. So what's going on? Is Babylon the Great is falling, man, and it's becoming a habitation of devils, man. This is Ecclesiastes 10 and 14. It reads, matter of fact, let me read 8 again. Ecclesiastes 10 and 8. Because of unrighteous dealings, injuries and riches got by deceit, the kingdom is translated from one people to another. Verse 14. The Lord Yahweh, Bahashim Yahushua, has cast down the thrones of proud princes and set up the meek in their stead. The Lord Yahweh have plucked up the roots of the proud nations and planted the lowly in their place. The Lord Yahweh, Bahashim Yahushua, overthrow countries of the heathen and destroyed them to the foundation of the earth. And that's what's going on, man.
Yes, of course. The dollar was king for a long time. People don't like to be ruled by foreign kings, and they are looking for ways out of it. And there are various ways out of it. Russia and China, for example, have been very big buyers of gold over the last few years, making sure that they have their own reserve. And of course, if the US government and the Treasury are cheapening the value of the dollar for the reasons that Ben ably outlined, then that means that the debt that they are holding is worth less to them than it would be hitherto. So it's a vote of no confidence in the United States' long-term economic hegemony. And it's a vote of confidence amongst countries like China, preeminently China, that they are able to do it themselves. They don't have to be under the hegemony of the US dollar, which is being used for political purposes. That hegemony is used all over the world for political rather than economic purposes. And the other countries are getting tired of it. China and Russia see America nowadays as a hostile actor. In Europe, they see it as an actor not nearly as friendly as it used to be. And for all these reasons, it will be harder to shift the debt if China starts to sell it.
Ben, let me go back to you with something my sources told me when I was speaking to them this morning. They said while China wants to do this, they're not going to be able to do this for some time because they don't have the infrastructure. And I think what they mean by infrastructure is the bond market that's capable of moving, let's say, $1 trillion, which the United States can do, China cannot do right now. Are they right?
Well, I think they're right, but I think China is doing a pretty good job, and I say good not necessarily because it's good for the United States, but certainly it's good for China. China is moving in a different direction here. What they're essentially trying to do is move into a position where they can put themselves ahead of the United States by developing relationships with other nations, by developing relationships with infrastructure in other nations, loaning money to other nations, becoming a bank to the world in a way that the U.S. has not been in the past. And that's a huge part of this. So as we move forward, one of the things we have to consider is what is the U.S. going to do to respond to this? The U.S. has been frustrated for some time by the concept that essentially China is going around the world and loaning money to other nations for infrastructure builds. They've been moving in this direction. So that's why I'm saying this is a step in a staircase that essentially gets China and the rest of the world off of dependency on the US dollar as a reserve currency. And I got to say this, Rick, it's important for American viewers to understand the significance of this because we have no generations of Americans left, really, essentially none left, who remember a time when the US dollar was not the world's reserve currency. Wow. We have become to the point of assuming it's always been this way. It's only been that way since after World War II, and yet we act as if it is a foregone conclusion that it will always be this way, and it very well may not be.
George Gallo.
Jeremiah 50:23. How was the hammer of the whole earth cut asunder and broken? How was Babylon become a desolation among the nations? The Lord say, I have laid a snare for thee, and thou art also taken, O Babylon, and thou wast not aware. Thou art found and also caught, because thou hast striven against the Lord. Yeah, that's why. This is Job 24:23. Matter of fact, let me read this first. Psalms 75 and verse 8. Psalm 75 and verse 6. For promotion cometh neither from the east, nor from the west, nor from the south. But power is the judge. He putteth down one and setteth up another. So your time of reigning is coming to naught. Job 24:23. Though it be given him to be in safety, whereon he resteth, yet his eyes are upon their ways. Who eyes? Yahweh Bashmi Yahushua. Though it be given him to be in safety, though it be given to the Adunya to be in safety, whereon he resteth, yet his eyes are upon their ways. Yahweh Bashmi Yahushua, eyes on your ways. They are exalted for a little while, but are gone and brought low, which is your national your original habitation, man, to be brought low. Again, Job 24:24. They are exalted for a little while, but are gone and brought low. They are taken out of the way as all other, and cut off as the tops of the ears of corn, man. Okay, you reign for a little while, and you gotta be removed, man. Again, they are exalted for a little while, but are gone and brought low. They are taken out of the way as all other kingdoms, man. You gotta be moved. And it won't be another hegemony, man. The hegemony is gonna be Yahweh Shai's kingdom. They tell you that in Daniel 2:44 and 45, man. Okay? The Heavenly Father Yahweh is establishing his son kingdom on the earth. So it's over. Babylon the Great is finna sit in the dust and will not rise again. I'm gonna close with this. Ecclesiastes chapter 11 and verse 5. It reads, many kings have sit down upon the ground. Many kings have sit down upon the ground, and one that was never thought of have worn the crown. Many mighty men have been greatly disgraced, and the honorable delivered into other men's hands. Hey, the Lord is turning things right side up, man. Okay? Everything that was turned upside down, Isaiah 29:16, what did it say? It said, your turning the things upside down shall be esteemed at the potter's clay. Isaiah 29:16. Surely your turning of things, it says, surely your turning of things upside down shall be esteemed at the potter's clay. You, man. Isaiah 5:20. Woe unto them that call evil good and good evil, that put darkness for light and light for darkness, that put bitter for sweet, sweet for bitter. Now you saying the LGBTQP, it's okay to be that way, bestiality laws, it's okay, all this upside down madness. The Lord is pissed off. It said your sins have reached into heaven, man. Hey, Ecclesiastes 1, 9 and 10, Ecclesiastes 3 and 15. There's nothing new under the sun, man. And as the scripture said, and I just read in Job 24, they shall be taken out of the way as all others, man. A Lord was edifying, Gotta give all praise, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahashim Yahweh Shai, Bahashim Rekak Wadash, double honors to the apostles and elders of Great Millstone, who rule well, who teach well, and the sincere salutation to all the Akim, pushing the truth and believing the truth to the four ends of the earth, the entire world, waking up the hopeful elect. And shalom to the Agwa who are listening and learning, the few sisters who are listening and learning. Lord willing, edifying. Till next time, I say shalom, wa abab abal.
By the way, I see you shaking your head. I wish I could continue this conversation.
Shalom.